Hey everybody, I'm Marbozir and welcome back to Let's Play Shadowrun Hong Kong. So, before we accept our next job, I think it's a good idea to look around a bit. We can talk with our team members, see what they have to say. We can look around here in general, see if there's anything new. So, let's start by having a chat with Duncan, why not? You enter Wolf's cabin to find him moving through some sort of stretching routine. His muscles ripple as he flows tranquilly from one pose to the next. You look different, Liang. Do I? Yeah, like I flip forward a few chapters instead of turning a page. I mean, you look like you just... not the you I knew. Sounds like song lyrics. I get it. You're just a lot leaner. I have no idea what you're saying right now. He chuckles. You sound like Lockjaw. Remember him? Never followed a damn thing I said. Good guy, but not big on the thinking thing. Wolf smiles. His teeth are perfect. I'm saying that you look more mature. Like you know more now. It's written on your face. Takes getting used to. Okay. It's weird thinking that you have 8 years of experiences that I know nothing about. I used to know everything about you. I used to know how the world worked too. At least I thought I knew. So, what about you? How are you doing? Good, actually. This is the life I always wanted. Kinda pissed at Raymond for getting us into this whole thing. I'm a little freaked out. I don't know this city at all. I feel like an alien here. Well, it's true, we don't know this city. And we are a little bit out of place here, let's just say. Same here. I may look like I belong here, but I feel like a complete outsider. I mean, we are outsiders. Regardless, you're good at running this crew, Liang. But I still don't completely understand. He picks up an ammo box and begins using it like a dumbbell. What do you get out of being a Shadowrunner? Freedom, I'm not a cog in the corporate machine. Is the money, is the thrill. Running keeps me firmly in the moment, I feel alive. I get to hurt people for money? I'm not sure. Well, let's go with that one then. I don't know, I can't put my finger on it. Carter said that an unexamined life isn't worth living. He smirks. Well, whatever you get out of it, I doubt the trade-off's worth the shorter lifespan. And at the end of the day, what are you? A Shadowrunner, a disposable asset, sinless, slithering through the cracks of society, doing jobs that are too dirty for the corps to do themselves. You don't even appear on a corporate balance sheet. You make it sound so unglamorous. I call my own shots, take the jobs I want. Runners can be more than that. They can move their own agenda, fight the power. I've never heard a story where a Shadowrunner did something other than kill someone, steal something, or perpetrate some sort of shady shit. But good luck with that. Wu watches you, waiting for you to say something. You thinking about getting chromed up? With cyber? He shakes his head. Oh my god, how many times are you gonna ask me that? Until you give me a satisfying answer. Oh, at least a couple dozen more times. You always have the best reactions. Wu grins. His teeth are blindingly white. I told you one time I was thinking about it when I was 13. Let it go. I am not gonna pollute my body with that shit. Archetype adept. Whoa, look at me. I've got the magic in my hands. Of course I won't get cybered. Yeah, I guess you got a point there. That's a good thing, by the way. Better to keep yourself whole, in touch with the world around you. I may not have magic, but I know that's true. So, what do you think about that last run? I don't know, Liang. I've had enough of goals for one lifetime. The barrens were full of them. Remember what 162s did to Azlaner family that lived in the old town center? Remember how we found them? It's not the kind of thing you forget. Tooth marks in the bones and all that. Sure, but in all fairness, they were asking for it. They were keeping second-hand organs in a walk-in freezer. I mean, what did they expect? Yeah, but still, nobody deserves to go out like that. I don't know, Liang. I don't think that I'll ever get comfortable with having a ghoul on our crew. Made sense to keep those elders alive, by the way, good call. We don't know anyone in this country. Seems wise to try and get some allies. Anyway, enough about that. Need anything else? I want to talk about you and me. He rests his eyes on you for a moment, his face neutral. Yeah, I guess now's as good time as any. You start. You're not acting like the Duncan Wood that I grew up with. What made you decide to become a cop? I needed structure, bad. You know that better than anyone. I was already hardcore when we met, Mr. Ultravalence. I'd do anything to get a rise out of the guys that I was rolling with. Gouging eyes, inverting knees, curb stomping. That shit got me cheers. I was like a pit fighter, bloodletting for the crowd, and I learned to enjoy it. But I never learned how to block out the memories of their screams when I was lying in bed at night. The guilt started eating me alive, and then I was scared to be alone with my thoughts, so I tried to drown them out with all the things that you drown things out with. How bad was it? You never told me that before. You seemed to have it under control when we were together. It's funny how people remember things. Yeah, when we squatted together and later we were living with Ray. I was a violent son of a bitch, but basically under control. But that was you, Hulk. You were the voice of reason, the brains. Me, the brains? Don't pretend you weren't the leader. You know how it was. When we ran the streets together, I was the muscle and you called the shots. You pointed and I hit. But later, after Ray got me some counseling, I realized I let you call the shots so that I wouldn't have to. Because I knew that what I wanted was wrong. By following your lead, I was deflecting my own guilt onto you. I could just knock heads and walk away clean. You know, don't look at me, I'm just doing what I'm told. And then you left. Without you there, I knew I was in serious trouble. The poster boy for anger management issues. Raymond could provide a stable environment, a decent therapist, and money for prescriptions, but, you know Raymond, he's an egghead engineer with a philanthropic streak, not a drill sergeant, and the drill sergeant was what I needed. I needed structure and discipline in a way that he couldn't offer me. I needed a cage to keep myself in line. So I found myself a cage made of rules, and procedures, and training. Lone Star. Raymond helped me with my application and provided a decent character reference. I got in, and it helped a lot. Lone Star got me where I needed to be. And now it's all gone. And you're back. Seems like Carter's death hit you pretty hard. Wu continued stretching. Yeah, she was a good one. We were a real team. Joining Lone Star helped me in all sorts of important ways, no doubt about that. I really embraced being a cop. I studied my ass off. But no matter how hard I worked, I was never more than a model cop with a brutal streak. There were plenty of assignments that were perfect for a big mean orc like me. Assignments that would have fed my need to hurt people. But I met Carter about a year in, and she changed things. She talked about values and goals, and priorities, and constructing the life that you want to live. She was a real trip. Sounds like a good woman. She was a cop, a partner, a mentor, and a serious badass when she needed to be, but yeah, she was a good person too. She kept me focused. When Raymond asked me to meet him in Hong Kong, I had a feeling I was gonna wind up going off the reservation if I didn't bring Carter along, and now she's gone, and here I am. You only took a step off the reservation, you can choose to step back too. It might be time to stop looking for someone to hold your leash, Duncan. We can handle it like we used to. I'll be the brains, and you be the muscle. I say that you honored her memory by showing her how much you've learned. Well, we are currently the boss, we run the show around here, so... we are in fact the brain, and he's the muscle. Yeah, we can, and that's my instinct, but that's not what Carter would say if she were here. He picks up his flashlight from the bed and checks the battery. She said that the object of the game isn't to go backwards, it's to grow. But no matter what, you're leading this crew, so you get to make the calls. I just don't intend on going backwards. You've been waiting a long time to ask me about the night I left, haven't you? Wu chuckles and hugs and hooks his thumbs in his belt. I guess I have, yeah. It's about time. It's about what you were doing before you got thrown into that corp facility. You said that you had a friend who was in a bind, but that was all you could say. How did it go? Went fine. It was a cakewalk, really. Nothing to talk about. Whatever you say, Liang. Do you ever think about when we were kids? He begins moving through some sort of pattern. Might be Tai Chi. I try not to. What are you talking about exactly? The time before we moved in with Raymond and Mrs. Maloney. The old gang. The squat in the barrens on Leary Way. The time before we moved in with Raymond. Oh, the dark times. We're not exactly talking about an idyllic youth here, Liang. Sleeping in dumpsters, running from ghouls, fighting over scraps, and defending your territory. If we hadn't found that spot in the abandoned building, found Lockjaw and Double Tray, we probably wouldn't be here. So weird to think about that now. I mean, you realize they were teenagers, right? Younger than Gobet. They felt so old back then, but Lockjaw couldn't have been more than 17 tops. And Double Tray was only 13 when... Why were you thinking about back then? I miss the clarity of that life, just thinking about that thing DT used to say, I don't know. Guess I was thinking about anywhere but Hong Kong. Woody turns to his patterns. He manipulates the imaginary soap bubble between his hands. Yeah, well, going back in time isn't uncovering a lot of great memories for me. We were living between the Red Hot Nukes and the 162s, crazy-ass dwarf anarchists on one side and flesh-eating ghouls on the other. Those are the days that you long for? Long for? No. I was just thinking that it's the same now as it was back then. It was you and me, Duncan. Those other guys were important, but it was always about you and me. Well, I was just thinking that it's the same now as it was back then. Survive and watch each other's backs. Yeah, I know. Let's talk later. Yeah, later would be good. Don't get me wrong, catching up is nice, but I'm not used to being as social as this. That's one of the reasons why it was so nice to work under Carter. We both appreciated long silences. Okay? Well, I'll clear out then. Give you personal space. Thanks, I'll bask in it. Oh, and good talk, Liang. I'll catch up with you later. Okay then, so let's maybe check on Ractor. And I'm guessing Gaichu will be somewhere down here. That's the only place that really makes sense for him. Yep, he's right there. Alright, let's have a chat with Gaichu then, why not? The storage room that functions at Gaichu's cabin is a cramped, overheated mess. Piles of old ship parts share space with tarnished cookware, flasks of instant noodles, a collection of cast-off clothes, and reams of diagnostic manuals for obsolete computer hardware. To top it all off, there is barely any light whatsoever. All of the bulbs in this room are missing. Gaichu is busily moving boxes around, apparently in an effort to carve out some personal space amid the junk that he shares his cabin with. As you enter, he cocks his head and turns around. Welcome to my sanctuary, Hulk. I apologize for the lack of light, but as I did not need it, Gobet took the bulbs for use elsewhere. How can I be of assistance? I just wanted to see how you were settling in. Gaichu rolls his shoulders in a diffident shrug. I am among those who can make use of my services and who are not attempting to claim the bounty on my head. Is that not enough for now? Any thoughts about that last run? Gaichu shrugs, blinking a few times in surprise. What do you expect me to say? You have allowed me to live, invited me into your home, or both if you prefer, and have given me a means to earn an income and use my particular set of talents. I am pleased with this. While I understand your desire to keep the elders alive to preserve whatever goodwill exists between you and the One Poans, I worry that such softness sends the wrong message to those in the underworld. There is a time for truth, but there is also a time for sending a message. Is there anything else I can do for you? Have you been having weird dreams recently? Gaichu clicks his tongue and sharply dips his head. Yes, I have indeed. I had thought that I was alone in this. No, you're definitely not alone. I saw a vision of shadowy shapes, rows upon rows of sharp teeth, and the stench of sulfur. My initial assumption was that I was simply dreaming of my fear of becoming what so many assume of me, a monster without a mind. Does this coincide with a dream you had? Yeah, the very same. Curious. A shared hallucination, perhaps? Flaws in Hong Kong ley lines? It is interesting that I had the same dream as you while I was in Whampoa Garden, and you were here. Were that not the case, I would call this boat haunted. Do you think it means anything? I have no idea, and frankly, I do not care. Omens and portents are powerful inducements to behave foolishly. I would suggest leaving the interpretation of dreams to soothsayers and priests. I need to talk about your condition being a ghoul. Gaichu inclines his head. As you wish. You are my benefactor, and as such, I yield to you. Ask then. I will do my best to answer. Okay? I thought all ghouls were animalistic predators. Most are. In the vast majority of cases, the infected become the crazed predators everyone sees on the nightly trade news. I bear the physical signs, but not the mental ones. A few escape that fate. There are others, though. In Africa, there is a nation of ghouls. It is called Asamando. The intelligent ghouls in Asamando care for the ones whose higher faculties have been ravaged by the disease. Still, not a safe place to visit. What makes you different? I am willful. Those with a strong sense of self, a chip on their shoulder, if you will, are always those that survive the infection with their minds intact. I suppose I am selfish enough to have retained a possible semblance of my former humanity. Aside from being blind, how has it affected you? Aside from my heightened senses and of smell and hearing, I am stronger, tougher, and more resilient than any mundane human. I can achieve feats of physicality that are normally restricted to adepts and those with extensive enhancements. These as well, as sharp as any small knife, I prefer my sword, but in a grapple they come in extremely handy. He draws one nail over the surface of his shoulder blades. A hair-fine spiral of armor peels off in the nail's wake. Do you still need to sleep? Gaichu chuckles, his laughter rasping out over his lips. Unfortunately, I do. I am not an undead creature of legend. If I manage to unlock the secret of rest without sleep, I will be certain to inform you. It seems like your condition has stabilized. For now, it has. I will not suddenly become a ravenous beast lurking in the hold of your ship. At least no more so than I already am. Why did you pick the name Gaichu anyway? Your armor is heavier than what most Shadowrunners wear, and more distinctive too. Gaichu nods, growling his assent. That is correct. It is the armor worn by the elite soldiers of the Renraku corporate military, the Red Samurai. We don't have corporate etiquette. What are the Red Samurai? The Renraku military's Special Operations Division, the most elite that the corporation has to offer, on par with Ares Firewatch or Teen Tangrid's Ghosts. The Red Samurai are world-class soldiers, assigned to only the most difficult and important missions. How'd you manage to steal a suit of their armor? That armor's a rare thing for a Shadowrunner to have. Aren't they going to come looking for your armor? Well, that armor's a rare thing for a Shadowrunner to have. That is true. It is considerably less rare for a Red Samurai to have a suit of it, however, even if he goes rogue. You were a Red Samurai. Indeed. For the entirety of my adult life, I was a member of the Renraku military, specifically the Red Samurai. That changed relatively recently. I feel the reasons are abundantly clear. Yes, they are. Hence, I still possess my armor, my sword, my training. They have served me well in both my previous life and in this one. How did you end up in Hong Kong? Did you grow up in a corporation? Yes, in Keihanshin, the Kyoto-Osaka-Kobe sprawl. It is less populated than Neo-Tokyo, but not by much. I grew up in East Kobe, where my father was posted in a Renraku complex. Gaichu rolls around in a nearby box, running his fingertips over several chips before deciding on one. He slots it into his PDA, and the 3D photo flickers to life in the space between you. A young man, Obviously Gaicho leans against a railing which overlooks a sprawling harbor complex of skyscrapers and cranes. His school uniform is ripped, and the beginnings of a black eye are forming. Abrasions cover his knuckles, and blood dots his pants. Despite this, he's grinning just like he's won the lottery. Vibrant, fierce. That's not what I expected to see. What picture is it? Obviously I am not able to see the image. You're standing on a railing, overlooking a city. Ah, that must be on Mount Maya. If I remember right, I gave better than I got in that fight. 3 against 1, but they were out of shape and cocky. I used to cause a lot of trouble when I was in school. My father was constantly raging that I had no sense of responsibility and that I needed to take life more seriously. The final straw was when he bailed me out of jail. I've been in jail a few times. What did you do? My friends and I stole a delivery van. It had shipment of Shiawa's Simpsons decks. Brand new, very expensive. We were going to fence them and use the money to take a trip to Okinawa. Are you familiar with what it's like growing up in a corporate family? Not a clue. You have to understand, children are trained to hate rival corporations. We did not regard a theft of Shiawa's goods as illegal. We were simply doing our part to ensure Renraku's supremacy. This kind of behavior is ignored and even tactily encouraged by company media. Unfortunately, we were caught by Shiawa's security, not Renraku. What did your father do next? Gaicho clicks his tongue a few times. He seems reluctant to continue. That is a story for another time, unfortunately. I still have a lot of arranging to do, and I doubt anyone else will be willing to be alone with me in a darkened room. Come back later, we can discuss it further. Okay. So let's talk with Ractor. See what he has to say. Ractor's shop is sweltering hot, even more so than it was the first time you stepped inside. The whir of actuators accompanies the fine motions of the manipulator arms that hang from the ceiling. They are turning an object over and over in their articulated hands, soldering wires and hammering rivets. Ah, my friend, welcome back. Ractor touch types a series of commands into his bracer, and the arms relax into an idle posture. He smiles at you, a cigarette dangling from his lip. There, that's better. Now, what can I do for you? How are you getting along with the other members of the team? Perfectly well, thank you. They all seem very competent. They all seem competent enough, and there haven't been any major personality conflicts so far. So long as they continue performing to an acceptable standard, I can see no reason to continue our arrangement. Not to continue our arrangement. It's good to run with the team again. Sure, alright, but what do you think of them personally? If anything changes, let me know. Very good, I'm glad to hear it. Well, I'm glad to hear it. All is well, my friend, I assure you of that. Now, was there another matter that you wanted to discuss? Any thoughts about that last run? I was not there, my friend. I spent my evening enjoying a fine Ukrainian vodka laced with honey and peppers. Good quality stuff, that. A pity that it was my last bottle. Right, I thought that people who don't join still have some kind of opinions, but I guess not. You're still something of a mystery to me, to the group, Ractor. Mind if I ask a few questions? No, I don't mind. Not at all. I can promise that my answers will satisfy your curiosity, of course, but you may certainly ask. What was it like growing up in the Russian Republic? Tumultuous, as you might expect. You probably aren't old enough to remember the Euro Wars, but I am. I'd like to hear about them. My country was the instigator of the first Euro War back in 30s. I remember the rhetoric, the hardships of living under a wartime economy, the rampant xenophobia that took hold. I remember how we all cheered when our forces invaded Poland. 3 months. That was all that it took for our military to crush what meager resistance the Poles could bring to bear. It was quite the source of national pride at home. I remember our drive into Germany and the desperate bid to reclaim the eastern portion of that country to ourselves. Just think about the symbolic significance of such an act, an audacious move, to be sure, but Secretary Kroponin was determined to make history. Yeah, in the same way Stalin was. Audacious move. You're talking about the overthrow of a sovereign nation, not a maneuver in a chess game. So what happened? Did the German military stop you? No, the Night Wraith incident did. The Night Wraith incident did. Night Wraith? British-made fighter bombers with stealth capabilities. Very state-of-the-art, very powerful. At least, that's what they were purported to have been. Nobody has ever come forward to accept responsibility for the attack. Regardless of who was behind it, the result was the same. Wave upon wave of bombings that targeted our forces and the Germans alike, coupled with the assassinations of dozen military leaders. A devastating, synchronized operation expertly carried out over the course of a single night. At home, viral attacks shut down our power grids. Hundreds of thousands of Russian homes found themselves without heat or electricity in the dead of winter. Koshei scuttles forward, allowing the rigger to rest his hand on the sloping metal of his chassis. Ractor stares at his own deformed reflection in the metal of the drone's body, a sad smile on his face. I remember huddling under a mountain of cheap blankets that my mother had piled up in my bed. They did little to protect me from the cold, but they were something that I could hang on to, something tangible that I associated with warmth and comfort and home. There, as my body trembled and I watched my breath frost over, a horrible truth descended upon me. We had caused this. We were the villains of the First Euro War. For the first time, I came to face with what Kroponin's folly had brought us, and there, under that ridiculous heap of rags, I came to realize what would surely come to pass. The world thought us villains, and so they would treat us like villains. We would be pariahs on the international stage, crippled by retributive sanctions. We would never live down the shame. He wipes his hands, as if cleaning them. A wry smile appears across his face. And then the AFA invaded Greece and Spain, sparkling off Euro War II. We redeployed our troops to help repel them, and all was made right again. That easy, huh? I have to imagine that you still had enemies in Poland and Germany, even after the start of the Second War. Oh, we were still regarded with suspicion, of course, but all of Europe might have fallen if it hadn't been for our help. In essence, we took back our reputation at gunpoint. Not an ideal solution, I admit it, but it worked. Within the span of 4 months, we Russians had gone from nobodies to a terrible threat to unlikely saviors in the eyes of the Western world. Studying exactly what happened had taught me a great deal about human psychology and social dynamics. Human psychology, you say that as if you weren't one. He laughs. Just a figure of speech, my friend, nothing more. Now, shall we talk about something else? Surely there are more interesting and relevant things to discuss. You mentioned that the Second Euro War was sparked off by the AFA. Who were they? He takes a drag on his cigarette. I suppose you wouldn't know. They were only active for the years surrounding the conflict after all. The AFA was the Alliance for Allah, serving under Mollah Said Jarzir, a coalition of right-wing Middle Eastern governments that assembled under the failure, some say sabotage, of the United Islamic Conference. They looked to a weakened Europe and saw an opportunity, one that my country was entirely responsible for creating. And so they launched a surprise attack. Yes, but in hindsight, we should have foreseen it. Ultimately, the AFA did what any hawkish power would have done in their position. I cannot fault them for taking advantage of Europe's weakened state. Given their circumstances, they would have been foolish not to. So what happened? How did the war end? The AFA folded in 1937. After Jazrir's assassination, a lucky thing for us too. The body count could have been a great deal higher. In the years that they were active, the AFA gave us a hell of a fight. Okay, did you emigrate directly from Russia to Hong Kong? No. Between my years in Nizhny Novgorod and time here in Hioi, I spent a year in the free city of Berlin. That was where I got my feet wet as a Shadowrunner, you see. I ran with a team of anarchists for a time, and learned the ropes of the occupation under their tutelage. Anarchists, huh? Must have been interesting. He shrugs. It was, to a point. They were disorganized, to be sure, but perfectly capable. We enjoyed a certain level of camaraderie while we ran together. Sadly, we are no longer on the best of terms. What happened? An opportunity arose and I seized it. In so doing, I left Berlin for Hong Kong, and I did so without much advance notice. My absence made life difficult for them, and they blamed me for their hardships. You did what you had to do. If you cut and run on me, I'd be pissed at you too. Well, you did what you had to do? Yes, that's right. While my departure may have caused complications for my former teammates, it wasn't personal. I haven't lost any sleep over my decision. In my position, any of them would have done the same. He looks away, a wistful expression on his face. Koshei scrapes the ground with his forelegs, its sensors fixed firmly on you. Ultimately, I would say that my time in Berlin was quite educational, different from my earlier life in Russia, to be sure. As I said, the experience was invaluable. Ultimately, though, Hioi is probably better suited to my sensibilities. Really? This place is a dump. I know what you mean, I like it here too. How so? Life in Hong Kong is more structured than it is in Berlin. Things make sense here in a way that the Flux state didn't. He taps a finger to his temple. I have an orderly mind, everything in its place, neatly labeled and filed away. This approach is what allows me to make sense of the world. To say that the people I knew in Berlin thought differently would be an understatement. Why did you move from Russia to Berlin? He holds his tongue for a moment, considering. When we first met, I told you that I parted ways with Grishin Aviakor under unfortunate circumstances, yeah? You mentioned it. These same circumstances led me to Berlin. I was wrong, and I would not find recourse in Russia. I suppose that there's no sense in being vague. I'll tell you the story if you want to hear it. Please, lay it on me. You may remember the self-repair system I mentioned the first time we met, the module that would allow Koshei or any sufficiently equipped drone to repair itself. I told you that my research had been lost, that was not strictly true. It was stolen by a pair of colleagues who I had long considered friends. They were researchers from my old lab. They turned against me, stole our work, in truth my work, and defected. So they betrayed you. Yes, driven by desperation, no doubt, and ambition. They had always been fixated on getting out of Russia. Grishin Aviakor was a nationalized corporation, and they would never get rich as cogs in a government-controlled machine. In our project, they saw their key to breaking away and earning their fortunes, never mind the fact that I was opposed to the idea. And so they took what was mine and left me with nothing. And so you followed them, I take it? Yes. The two had long spoken about moving to Berlin. Such was true of a great many academics in Russia. My homeland is a bureaucratic dictatorship, you see. There is little personal freedom, and there are many rules to be followed. As you might imagine, the stable anarchy of the Flux state can be an alluring concept to those who live under totalitarian rule. Berlin is much romanticized back home. So you assumed that your former colleagues had run to Berlin? Makes sense. If you've spent your life tied up in bureaucracy, you could do worse than moving someplace with no rules. So you assumed that your former colleagues had run to Berlin. It was the only thing that I had to go on. At best, I would find them. At worst, it would be a good place to rebuild my life. And of course, to establish a web of contacts that I'd need to track my betrayers down. There is a squeal of tortured metal as Koshei drags his claws over the iron grating that covers the floor. Ractor glances down at the drone and it goes calm. He takes a deep breath and continues. It took me over a year to locate my former friends. It was a long, painstaking search, but I was nothing if not determined. I finally found evidence that they used my research as a bargaining chip to secure positions at Ares, and they were here in Hong Kong. And so you came here, to Hioi. He nods. I picked up and left the next day. My old team was upset, to be sure. Lucky Strike in particular howled for my blood, but I know where my priorities lie. And so here I am. And they are here. And here they are. And soon I will be ready to act. I really must thank you for inviting me into the team. Your abilities will be invaluable when the time finally comes to make my move, assuming, of course, that you'd be willing to help. Of course, when you're ready, just say the word. Yep. Thank you, my friend, but this is a discussion for another day. We aren't ready to hit an Ares facility yet, and there is more intelligence to gather before we make our move anyway. When the time comes, I will let you know. This stolen research means more to you than money, doesn't it? He nods his head. Yes. Yes, much more. It was my life's work, and it was important. Reducing it to a bargaining chip was a deadly insult, both to me and to all those who would benefit from my work. It's just a self-repair system for a drone. How important can it be? You say that with almost religious fervor? I don't think I've ever seen you get this intense about anything. The corner of his mouth tilts upwards. I suppose that's probably true. This is a matter that's near to my heart, indeed. It ties into the guiding philosophy of my life. Tell me, are you familiar with the concept of transhumanism, the transformation of humanity as a species by technological means? Etiquette academic? Huxley coined the term in the late 1950s, I believe. He nods. Yes, that's right. The seeds of the idea trace back even further to the 1920s and the JBS Haldane, but it was Huxley who popularized it, and now the transhumanist vision has progressed beyond philosophy. It is a fact. Look around you. Cybernetics are a fact of everyday life. The synthesis of a man and machine is crowning achievement of meta-humanity as people. I believe that we are well on our way to a truly post-human future, one in which the synthesis of a man and the machine is perfected to the point that the terms become interchangeable. In such future, the capacity for unlimited self-repair would be indistinguishable from immortality. You can see then why the theft of my research came as such a blow. My former colleagues hadn't just stolen from me, they had taken the contribution to the future of our species and reduced it to a bargaining chip. Yeah, I get it. I'd be upset too. So when are you planning on killing them? Well, yeah, I get it. I was more than upset, my friend. I was livid. I still am. But all will be made right in the fullness of time. I am nothing if not a patient man. I can wait. He rises, brushes himself off, and with that, I'm afraid that I'm going to have to bid you good night. I've taken enough of a break for one evening. There is still work to be done, and it would be lax of me to put it aside any longer. Alright, well, good luck with that. Or thanks, Ractor, it was interesting. Good night. Okay, that was quite an interesting conversation. I quite like the characters so far and the character development. But this is getting a little bit long now, so I'm going to finish this part here and continue in next one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.